Hello and welcome to IIW's Nari to Narayani. I'm Smita Sarkar, your host for the show. In today's episode, we will discuss the various aspects of COVID aid to India to tide over the deadly second wave. In this crucial hour, Indian diaspora organizations in the UK have come together to provide the much needed assistance and support to India. So, what kind of aid is India receiving? Is it reaching the right people at the right time? How do we sustain funding these aid projects in India? And most importantly, what are the health costs of the pandemic? To discuss these questions, we are joined today by two very distinguished guests. My first guest is Dr. Renu Jaina, a consultant pediatrician from Birmingham and the head of pediatrics in BAPIO. BAPIO is the British Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. BAPIO started the BAPIO India COVID Fund in collaboration with other organizations to send aid to India. So, Dr. Renu will discuss the organization's work, the medical and social implications of COVID on women and children in India. And my second guest is Dr. Sangeeta Waldron. Sangeeta is an author, an award-winning PR personnel, and the founder of Serendipity PR. She is here as a member of Bridge India, a think tank that is dedicated to the course or discourse on public policy. Sangeeta will be sharing her insights on the long term effects of COVID in India, the need for continuing aid to India, the sustainability of these aid projects, and the work that is being done by the members of Bridge India. Welcome, both of you. Welcome, Sangeeta, and welcome, Dr. Renu. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. So, while in the UK, we've learned that lockdowns are only a part of the issue at hand, and that you also need a comprehensive vaccine solution to combat COVID. India seems to be lacking in getting a strategy in place. Especially with this huge shortage of vaccines, medical equipment, and oxygen. So, Dr. Renu, can I start the episode by asking you for your comments on this?
Thank you, Smita. It is a pleasure to be on the show, and it is heart-wrenching to see what India has gone through, but we've still got a long journey. Uh, yes, the lockdown can only help us with, ensuring that we have the facilities for medical facilities available. So you're just trying to reduce the number of admissions to hospital or spreading it out so that the medical facilities can cope with it. However, the vaccine is the real weapon. We know from I work in pediatrics that it is actually the tool which will help us uh, probably win this war, this worldwidely we are facing this. And the vaccine shortage is a big issue in India. We have to increase the production, that's one. We can import vaccines. We've got to reach out to people. I think there have been lots of myths around the country that we shouldn't be taking vaccines or when we should, which one we should. I think it's important to send the right message across, have the vaccine, make them available, and even reach out. Like for children, we have vans, camps for vaccination. We can do the same for this. And the strategy has to be different for different states like Bihar, Bengal, where we have to reach out to people in comparison to smaller places like Haryana or Delhi, for example, where people can get to the place. So I think those are the different ways we can deal with it.
Yeah, I think the diversity and the extent that India is, it makes it really difficult. It is a very difficult situation that India is in right now. Sangeeta, would you like to share your views as well?
Yeah, so I'm delighted to be here and be part of this conversation. And thank you for creating this conversation because, we started 4 weeks ago with the UK headlines showcasing what was happening in India, and the situation's still carrying on, but it's no longer part of our news agenda. So I think it's really important because people might think it's done, it's dusted. It hasn't. It's still very much an ongoing tipping point in India right now. And Smita, you quite rightly said, I'm here on behalf of Bridge India, which is a think tank. It's not a relief agency. It's not like Save the Children or, crisis aid. It's an organization which is UK based and saw all the distressing images on our TV screens and very quickly decided it wanted to do something. And so it's been actively speaking to its members, which I'm one, and the rest of its community, its partners here in the UK, partners in India, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very quickly created relief aid. So oxygen, much needed oxygen machines, medical supplies, food supplies to different parts of India. So not just the big cities, but also some of the remote areas. And I think one thing that people forget in India, when you are in the local government hospitals, you don't get your food. You know, your food's not brought round like it is here. That's why food
Right.
supplies are really important for
Mm-hmm.
patients.
Absolutely. I think we need different kinds of aid coming in at this point of time. So, Dr. Renu, what kind of aid is BAPIO sending across to India through the BAPIO India COVID Fund? I think you doctors created this fund especially to tackle this situation, right?
Yes, I think some of the viewers may not know what BAPIO is, but basically BAPIO is a British Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. So we have about
Right.
65,000 doctors. We form a big percentage, almost 9% of the NHS workforce. So I think it's
Wow.
when this crisis happened in India, it was quite important that we, under our chair's leadership, we got together with other organizations, and we've really supported India in three ways. One was medical equipment, which delivers
Mm-hmm.
oxygen. For example, we had about 130 ventilators sent over. We had more than 1,000 oxygen concentrators and even more than 5,000 pulse oximeters. And it was equipment delivered directly to different states. We've had about more than 9 states covered, and it was
Okay.
so that was one big thing. Yes. And the second thing was teleconsultation. So we've had about 200 doctors who were supporting doctors in India to how to manage that,
Mm-hmm.
which also included consultation, like reports of radiology, like CT scan reports, etc. So that was our workforce providing direct support to people in India, doctors in India, and health professionals. And the third one was, as you may have realized, that a lot of people had lost jobs, the daily workers. So we collaborated with one of the charities in India and ensured food bags were provided there. So it was a three-pronged approach.
Right, right. So that's fantastic. I think Sangeeta Bridge India has also had its members coming forward to help collaborate in getting aid across different parts of India. So would you like to briefly share some details about the ongoing projects on ground then?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bridge India has been working with its partners on the ground in India, different kinds of organizations, and very similar to Dr. Renu's efforts, it's been broad across India. So Bihar, Bangalore, Gurgaon, which is just outside Delhi, and also to some of these very remote areas which are now experiencing the virus. And India is, as we know, is so vast. Not everyone in these remote areas actually understands what COVID-19 is. They've not heard of it. They don't understand things like social distancing, the whole efforts of, washing your hands. And they're also, a lot of these areas are, they're not near any kind of medical facilities. So Bridge India is bridging this gap, but also it's helping to educate people about the pandemic, which is
Mhm.
key. Because if they don't understand what's happening to them, then it's kind of almost like another challenge within it.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Because we've seen that. The aid has helped because recent reports from India have shown that metros have actually recorded lower COVID cases now. But the story is quite different in rural areas where people are still grappling without adequate testing. We don't have infrastructure, we don't have doctors, and um, in fact, I read in a recent report on Thomson Reuters report, which spoke about the surge of coronavirus cases in India's tea heartland in the east and northeastern states of Assam and West Bengal. And this is like the peak tea picking season, and tea pickers are struggling to quarantine in cramped spaces. So uh, apart from the poverty and the cramping conditions that the tea pickers live in, the the associations are now getting together and trying to help out the tea pickers. So you're right about this entire vulnerable situation that the smaller cities and towns and the more remote areas are faced with. So, Sangeeta, I think Bridge India has programs in rural areas in Jharkhand and Muzaffarnagar, right? Do you want to talk about them?
Sure. I mean, one of the key points, and like you were saying, with workers in tea plantations, a lot of these people are not literate. They can't read information, so they need people to go in and explain what's happening to them. So Jharkhand, which is in the east of India, is a very backward area. It's tribal. They have hardly any resources, very few health facilities. So Bridge India has really stepped up efforts here. It's supplied oxygen machines, food supplies, again, because these they've lost their jobs. And food is key, medical supplies. So, and also, as I said, earlier, it's about educating people about what is actually happening to them. And in these areas, people are losing breadwinners, main income earners, which again is just part of the problem. I mean, this pandemic isn't just about dealing with the virus; it's everything thereafter. It's like you're throwing a stone in the pond, and it's just going to have these continuous ripple effects.
Yes, yes. I think we'll take a testimonial that's coming from the Sarikela Khasarwa district in Jharkhand. It is a project by Bridge India again, and we've got a short testimonial that we can probably play right now to add on to what we were discussing. So if you could just wait, I think the studio.
नमस्कार, मैं डॉक्टर शिवचरण हाजदा, CHC कुचाई MY से। जैसा कि हम लोग सभी देख रहे हैं, समझ रहे हैं, पूरे विश्व में कोविड का प्रकोप छाया हुआ है और हमारा कुचाई प्रखंड भी इससे अछूता नहीं है। यहाँ पर हमारे कुचाई के अलावा खरसवा या अगल बगल के प्रखंडों से भी पेशेंट आ रहा है, क्योंकि ये हमारा DCSC के रूप में चिन्हित है। हमारा 30 बेडेड हॉस्पिटल है, 10 ऑक्सीजन सपोर्टेड बेड है। तो हमारे पास जितने संसाधन है उस पर काम तो चल रही, लेकिन मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा हमारे आदिवासी कल्याण समिति का, जिन्होंने अभी अभी मुझे 100 बेड सीट प्लस पल्स ऑक्सीमीटर, सैनिटाइजर और 10 बेड हमें दिया है। उनको मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा। चूँकि यहाँ पर जो पेशेंट आ रहे हैं, काफ़ी सीरियस मरीज भी आ रहे हैं, तो हमें ऑक्सीजन की भी ज़रूरत है। तो और कुछ सुविधा के रूप में जैसे ऑक्सीजन कंसनट्रेटर वगैरह की भी ज़रूरत है। अगर ये सपोर्ट या सहायता हमको मिल जाती तो बहुत अच्छा होता है यहाँ की आम जनता के लिए। तो मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा आदिवासी कल्याण समिति के पदाधिकारी एवं सदस्यगण को, कि हमें ऐसे विपरीत कंडीशन में ये सुविधाएँ दी जा रही है या दी जा रही है, इसका हम पेशेंट को सुविधा दे पाएंगे। उनके साफ़ सफाई के हिसाब से उनको जो भी तकलीफें हैं, विशेषकर जो है साफ़ सफाई को लेकर के, ये बेड का, हमारे बेडशीट का बहुत ज़रूरत था, तो ये हमें मिला। उनके लिए हम बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं और आगे हम उम्मीद करते हैं आप हमारा इसी तरह से सहयोग करते रहेंगे। हमारे कुचाई की जनता के साथ अगल बगल के जितने प्रखंड के मरीज आते हैं, उनका हम लोग सबको मिल करके देखभाल कर पाएंगे। मैं इसी उम्मीद के साथ आपको धन्यवाद करता हूँ। थैंक यू।
So that was a ground. That was a short video clip from the ground, and I think it's important to have had it in our discussion, because while we are just sitting in our in the comfort of our homes and having a discussion, it's good to have something that was from the ground. So Dr. Renu, you are also a part of a trust that is run in India. It's called the MJ Trust, and I think it does something very similar in India as well, right? So would you like to talk about that? Because I think it's so important to have the right partners on ground, because that's what makes all the difference. We can send all the aid that we can possibly get and send it to India, but we need the right people there to get it across to the vulnerable people and make sure that the aid is used at the most, it gets its maximum utilage. So, would you like to talk about the MJ Trust?
Yes, it was actually, I always think of a saying when I talk about it, by getting, you can make a living, but by giving, you can make a life. And me and my husband established this more than 10 years ago, initially for social and health care education mainly.
Okay.
But over the year, our work has mainly been around pandemic. It is volunteers who have agreed to support us, and doctors as well. A lot of doctors are there who are involved with this. And our main work is, at the moment, it is first in the slums around Delhi, supporting people, as Sangeeta said earlier, people have lost their people in the family who used to earn their bread. So, providing them food ration and supporting those people, giving them the right education, mask sanitizers. And in the remote areas, it's more around education because people don't know. It is getting them the right information. When is it crucial to be admitted? What are the signs to look for? We run 2 free health clinics every Thursday and every Sunday, and we've got doctors who've been doing it for a long time, for good more than 10 years now. So the medication is provided free now. It's about not just the medication, about assessing the saturation. So we did send medication and arrange for the saturations, providing the right support from doctors, arranging beds for them, oxygen. So it's been going on for a long time. And I come from a village, so I can understand the challenges you will face in a village where people cannot, people may not necessarily know what is right, what is wrong. Yes, the food is probably not a big problem in the village. It's more in the slums where they're daily workers, people who used to earn a daily wage they were on. And now suddenly with the lockdown, like pullers can't go, a lot of shops, small young people used to work in shops, they've lost their jobs, like on tea stalls, or on, people had a little thing for snacks, people will come and eat from those places. So this is what
Right.
we've been doing, and we would continue to do this. It is making a difference in their lives.
Right. So the other thing is, I know. I mean, it's very important to, like we just said, it's important to tie up with the right organizations to make sure that the aid is reaching the right people. So the BAPIO COVID India Relief Fund, it's tied up with other organizations, right, for distribution. Like Akshay Patra is one of the. So would you like to talk about that as well?
Yes, the funds we collected, it was along with Doctors Association UK, APNA UK, and BAPIO. Chair, Dr. Mehta, he has been working. We've come up to 25 years of it now, and he's been involved in lots of education transfer, and not just here in UK. In UK, of course, it's more about ensuring that everyone has the right say, everyone treated fairly. But in India also, he's done a lot of work for setting up exams. So this was an opportunity where we could use those links and provide the support, especially the equipment for oxygen, the ventilators, to the people who need it, because a lot of hospitals were just set up overnight, but they had the doctors, but
Mhm.
they didn't have the equipment. So that is
Right.
where our support reached, and it made a difference.
Right. So at this point, I'll just take a short video of Bapio's food distribution. So I'll just get the studio to play that for us. Yeah.
ऐसे एक एक करके फेंको। ये फेंके वाला काम नहीं कर रही है, हमें फेंकला के वाला काम है।
Okay. So so that looks like a lot of food aid that's got into into India. Sangeeta, do you want to talk a little bit more about the kind of work that is getting done in the cities? You mentioned Bangalore, and so do you want to talk about the people, the collaborators there, the other organizations who are helping Bridge India?
Sure. I mean, key to India, making things work in India on the ground is having the right partners, because we know that India has great bureaucracy and things can get stuck in customs. Food is not finding its way quick enough. So Bridge India's got different partners in different cities. It works with women's groups. It's working with not-for-profits on the ground in different places, and they're helping to, free up anything that's been stuck in customs, getting the medical supplies out to bigger places. And the efforts in the cities are very different to the rural work, which is about education and supplying people with the education about the virus. In the cities, people are aware of what's going on. It's about helping them to find beds, because some of the hospitals have been, chock-a-block, that they haven't had beds for people. So it's getting people to have access to the treatment that they need, and that has been key in the cities. But now, as you've quite rightly said, in the metros, the numbers are reducing, but now we're seeing that spill out into the rural areas, and that's now where Bridge India's focus is looking at the rural areas.
Right. So it's great discussions that we have that we are into right now. But I think we'll take a quick break here. But do stay tuned in, because on the other side we will talk about the health cost of this pandemic, the impact of COVID on women, and the viability or the sustainability of UK's aid projects in India. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll see you on the other side. Stay tuned.
When Fatima arrived at hospital, she was too weak to even stand. But with urgent treatment and nutritious food, this is Fatima just days later. That's how fast a child can recover from severe malnutrition if they receive the food and medicine they need in time. That's what your £2 today could do. This is the land where Fatima's family now live, since drought forced them to leave their home. But with your help, this is how families all over the world are transforming their land and their lives. With different types of seeds and new farming practices. This is what your £2 today could do. Please will you call 0800 055 7239 today to give just £2 a month. At Save the Children, we see how each donation adds up to something amazing. Children, happy and healthy, because their parents can grow the food they need to thrive. That is what someone's £2 helped achieve. Imagine what yours could do. Please call 0800 055 7239 or visit our website.
Key is here to answer all your questions on equity release. How easy, for instance, is the process? At Key, we make it easy. We'll support you every step of the way, and all our advice is free of charge. We encourage you to involve your family, and we'll leave you to make a decision in your own time. So use our free calculator to see how much you could release. Key, equity release that's right for you.
Okay, I'm awake.
Let's do this, Smudge.
Are
you ready to party?
Keep on. You'll never stop this.
Give me everything you got, Tim.
Here for it, Ben.
Stay in it with me, come on.
Yeah, with you.
5, 4.
Last push, you've got this. Yes to you, Peloton. You're done and dusted, just like that.
Let's take our feet down Beagle Street. Oh, the people that we'll meet. We'll pop up here and drop in on Roy, settling in with his new baby boy. Life insurance, he thought, whilst given a fright, and £100 voucher he received with delight. But these late nights must have him feeling less wise, as he spent it on a toy and not checked the size. So to get your life covered for come what may, visit beaglestreet.com and get your quote today.
Rise, recline, relax with Oak Tree Mobility.
Every day in our July draws, your summer could start with a £30,000 win.
Hey, you look better in life than you do on telly.
And in one lucky postcode area, every player will win a share of £3.1 million.
Oh my God.
Join before midnight on the 24th of June for a summer of celebrations.
We can start to dream a little bit now. We're pensioners, so, you know, we can...
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
Oh, sorry.
Someone's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing the bell.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned. In this segment, I'd like to discuss the health cost of this pandemic, with family losing breadwinners, many of them being women. Now, Sangeeta, you've authored a book, Corporate Social Responsibility is Not Public Relations. And you've recently written an article on India's Forgotten Women for the India CSR Network as early as in March this year. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your findings and also about this whole concept of sustainability that you've written about?
Sure. I mean, when I started writing my book at the start of 2020, the world was witnessing the Australian bushfires. We were having conversations about plastic pollution, and the planet was, and it still is, in a state of emergency. And then, February started, March, and then, the world understood there was a global pandemic and everything came to a standstill. And while I was researching my book, it became evident that businesses have a big role to play on the state of the planet. Businesses need to be doing better. And that is corporate social responsibility. It's the relationship of how they're producing and their relationship with planet, Mother Earth. And corporate social responsibility has become one of the key factors during this pandemic. And research after research is showing that people want better from businesses. They want businesses to do better by the planet. And if they're not, then people will not be supporting those kinds of businesses and companies. And while writing the book, I have a whole chapter on India. So chapter 3 is completely on India, because India is the first country in the world to have put in law a corporate social responsibility law, which is, it's a leader there. And a lot of...
read that chapter. I did read that chapter, and it was quite an eye-opener, to be honest. I did read that chapter in the book. So yes, do tell us more.
Yeah, so I get, one of the things we have here in the West, and, we all have this kind of sort of idea that we're teaching the East. And in fact, the East has a lot to teach us. And corporate social responsibility in India is a big thing. There have been companies there that are now international, multinational companies, but they started with purpose over 100 years ago. Their whole point wasn't to make money, it was to do good within the local community. And they're now, big brands. And, India's got a young population. And a lot of these young people want to improve India. They want India to be better within, the social structures. India's got lots of challenges. So there are a lot of social entrepreneurs in India who are doing fantastic things, sustainable, real sustainable work. So then going back to this pandemic, so March was, last year, we could see what was happening. And India at that time was in lockdown. It had really got ahead of this pandemic. It was taking things really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And what was found is, and I'm not sure I discovered this in India, a lot of the majority of women work in something called the informal economy, which is domestic workers. So they're housemaids, they're cooks, they're cleaners, and they have none of the sort of the privileges of being, when you're working within an organizational structure. So they've got no pension. If they don't go to work, they don't get paid. They don't get paid leave. They don't, so, and when India went into lockdown, a lot of these women lost their jobs and weren't being paid. There's no furlough scheme in India, and families were suffering, and children were suffering. There's poverty, extreme poverty, and as Dr. Rennie was saying, a lot of these families, they're not just sort of domestic workers, but they might own a tea stall, or they'll be doing, cleaning schools. Everything was suddenly didn't exist. And, the Indian, the government at that time showed that 17 million women from the formal economy and the informal economy lost their jobs. And that's just one aspect of this pandemic. And a lot of their jobs might not be there anymore, because as they're working for families, a lot of those families have also lost their jobs. Their circumstances have changed. There isn't anything for them to go back to. So, it's, we talked about this ripple effect. This ripple effect is long lasting. It's a snowball that's just getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly. I mean, it's a really difficult situation right now, and you're right. It will not end with the end of the COVID or with the end of the pandemic. It is a ripple effect, and it will carry on for years. So while we are talking about women during the pandemic, Dr. Renu, can you tell us the impact of COVID on women and on children? You can talk to us and tell us from a doctor's perspective, since you're a pediatrician. So would you like to talk about that?
Sure. Thank you very much, Smita. And I think this is something very close to my heart, working with children. I call it the hidden harm. And, when people talk about any crisis, war, and when they say it's affected everyone equally, I would completely disagree with that. It's always, majority of the time, is the women and children. They are the ones who actually suffer the most. If you think of a man who's unemployed, if you look at the number of referrals we've had for safeguarding children, the number of domestic violence incidents have gone up. So it is the impact the women and the children take, which people don't even talk about it. And, if the father's got COVID, he's come home, he's unable to work, he's coughing all the time, or if he goes into alcoholism, or if his depression has relapsed, who's got to bear the brunt of it? So the wife has to look at the person, absolutely. And I think it is not only here. If you think of it's women who get pregnant. If you think of the care the women are getting, the newborns care, it all had to take a backseat relatively, because if you think when the COVID hit, the pandemic hit us, everything rolled into as an emergency services. So what was who were the ones who actually suffered? The kids outpatients, we couldn't see them face to face. Schools were closed. School is, it's like how work is for us. For children, school is like that. And somebody had very nicely described, like, if you close schools, you close lives. That is actually a respite for some of the mums. That is actually, yes, absolutely. And I think they're growing there, they're socializing. You can't think of child, absolutely, you can't think of a child growing holistically if you are not sending him to school, or if his health is not addressed. In fact, if I think of my clinics, I've done them like partly over the telephone, partly face to face, depending of the child. But when I've now started seeing them, the family say, "It is so nice to see you," and the child can remember me, and it was like a break from what they were normally doing, and you can see the
Right.
difference once they start going to school. Yes. So I think it's quite crucial to look at their effect. And in India, I think what will now happen is we'll have things. Uh, it's not good to call them the evils of the society, but I would say things which can be improved. Challenges is better.
Right.
Child marriage will go up in India because a lot
Okay.
of yes, and a lot of women are going to lose their jobs, and I think Sangeeta has touched upon that, Smitha, already. Which we don't. These maids are the ones who are earning the bread and butter for the families. They've lost jobs, so
Right.
we are looking at
I think.
long term. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you. Please carry on. I thought you stopped. Please carry on.
Yes, I think what is important is that first we address the health. So acute emergency we have to manage, like it's like we're on a war footing. So we manage the COVID emergency. Now we've got to manage the longer term effect. So now a short term and long term. So short term will be like people who are discharged from hospitals. They will have like a post COVID phase. So you've got to ensure that the nursing care, the job looked after. And then you've got to think of long-term care, bringing people. I know that we talk about India having a young population, but they need jobs. We've got to try to bring them back into jobs. The organization I'm the founder of, we've collaborated with other organizations like old age homes, like there's one which works with vulnerable women who actually help them. We help them to make masks for us, or when the migrant laborers thing happened about a year ago, giving. So these women would cook food, we will get them the ration, and they will take for their families as well. So there are different small things we have to do, and even if it's a drop in ocean, I say it's the drops which make a ocean. So we should keep going, we shouldn't stop.
Right. I think the other question, I think I shared this with you a few days back, I think 2 days back, when I lost a dear friend and she has a young child. And then we were talking about bereavement and the fact that, when you lose a mom, grandparents and others traveling back, and you can't really have a normal funeral, you can't have family around you. And you were telling me that, that has a very, I mean, the child will actually be scarred for life. So, do you want to talk about that as well, bereavement, and how uh, we need to provide? I mean, there's going to be this entire generation
Yes.
of people who are going to be so badly emotionally affected by COVID.
Thank you for bringing this up, Smita. I think this was an important part which I missed from my answer. I'm also the palliative care lead for children where I work. And I can see how the process of bereavement, it's a whole family has to bereave through it. And in this, and if you have a life limiting condition, you have got the time to prepare for it. You've got the family to support you, you've got the health professionals. But in this COVID pandemic, what's happened is suddenly people have gone to hospital, and you've not even had the dead body back in India. And of course here also the funerals, we've only had few people coming over, and a lot of it has been over the phone, or it's going to be lasting for, like, normally bereavement process takes about 6 months or even longer depending on the psychosocial circumstances, but in this case it will be longer. They are absolutely, and their families, and especially if kids have lost their parents, like you mentioned about your friend, this young child, it's like a war. People are killed in the war, and then you're picking up pieces afterwards. It's the
Right.
scars are going to last. Like if you think of First World War and Second World War, we're still seeing the effects of it till now.
Right, right. No, I completely agree with you here. So, taking from here, I think I'll go back to the question of sustainability, and I'll ask Sangeeta to comment on this. So, surely you think that the only way forward is to sustain this aid to India. I mean, possibly the kind of aid that India will get or will need going forward will change. It might not be, just based on medical aid, but first of all, how long do you think India will need aid to recover from an aftermath of COVID, and what kind of aid do you think India will need going forward?
Wow, I mean, that's a great question, and it's probably not an easy one to answer. And as Dr. Renu was talking, I was just thinking, before COVID, India had challenges of lack of clean water, sanitation, education for girls. If you think of a sandwich, you've got that's one layer, and now with COVID, it's like this. You can't even get your head around it. I think India is going to need a lot of aid. It's and the aid is going to change, as you quite rightly said, and it's what's going to happen to people, what's going to happen to these children, and some of the these social ills, the social challenges India has, such as child marriage. I think those things will continue. We have seen already, we've mentioned tea during our conversations, but things like cotton production, where America relies on India for cotton for manufacturing of its garments, that's now been put on hold. So what's going to happen to those jobs, those workers? It's such a, it's not just one thing. It's so complex, and it's so sort of interwoven. But I do think India is going to need a lot of aid. And in the West, we talk about bereavement. We understand about talking about our feelings. India isn't really that kind of culture where you kind of open up about how you're feeling and about your grief. And also in this country, in the UK, we're talking about long COVID. India hasn't even got to that conversation about long COVID. It's still dealing with the now of what's happening. So I think it's going to be different. It's going to be layered. It's going to be what's needed. But I still think those challenges that India had at the beginning, such as literacy, education for girls, clean water, sanitation, those things are going to continue because those problems still exist. But at the same time, in parallel, it'll be things such as children who've lost parents, maybe both parents. There might be an increase of street children, which has also been an issue in India. So there's no straight answer. And also, I think, India's hospitals, government hospitals, they're not, I know from my own experience, they're probably not the most sophisticated in the world. So then now to deal with a sophisticated virus that keeps changing all the time, keeps mutating, how are those health services going to cope?
Right. So I think they are very pertinent points. Thank you so much for sharing your views, Sangeeta. Dr. Renu, do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to add to it?
Yes, we touched upon bereavement. We touched upon about child health, health for women. What we haven't touched upon is, again, I think there are two more things. One is sexual health for women in India. I think people are, it is quite a stigma anyway. And I think with the current COVID scenario, it's going to be even harder. They will not get the money to, like as Sangeeta mentioned, you don't always get government hospitals treating it. And if you go privately, you don't have the money to pay for it. And mental health is another big tsunami waiting. People are going to get into anxiety. That's right. Anxiety, depression. You have to wait, and it is just as we mentioned earlier. We've got to keep doing whatever little we do. It's all going to add up, and it's all going to support. We have to help India come out of this.
Right. So at this point, I'm going to play another video, which is the video that of BAPIO's food aid being sent to India. It's just a very short video of a ground report video. So I'd ask the.
एक एक करके फेंको। ये फेंके वाला काम नहीं कर रही है, फेंक के काम है।
Yeah, so going forward, I think we'll still have to continue, if possible. We have to look at a long term, supporting India long term in terms of providing food aid, medical aid, as we were saying. Trying to help India rebuild the economy. I mean, especially in smaller cities and towns and the remote areas, trying to get women back in the workforce, whether it's in small, unorganized sectors. We've discussed tea, and the tea associations already working towards getting vaccines for their employees. And smaller. There's so many embroidery. Uh, so many small and medium scale industries which have really been affected at this point of time. I think we need to continue to support them. So, but like Sangeeta had mentioned earlier, that India has its challenges when we are trying to send aid across to India. UK is trying their best to send aid across to India, but the challenges are to get these into the right hands and into the right places at the right time. What, according to you, Dr. Renu, are the challenges, are the main challenges at the moment?
I think there are a couple of things. One is transport across, because of the customs, because of the multiple barriers you have to go through. Like, I know when we sent aid via Baptio, we had to pay customs for some of the things, and then it took a bit longer than what we were expecting. The other thing is
I think we've lost Dr. Renu's audio right now. So,
who know how to use the
sorry. Okay. I think we lost Dr. Renu's audio in the middle. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just ask Sangeeta this question, and then we'll come back to you. Sangeeta, what do you think are the main challenges at the moment, and what, according to you, would be the solution, or if you have any suggestions on how this can be improved, do share that with us.
Sure. I mean, I think while it all sounds very gloomy, doom and gloom, I think the India diaspora around the world, are committed to helping India. And when we've seen those images on our TV screens and reading the headlines, there has been a tug. You want to do something. You want to be able to help people move India forward in some way. So I think if people haven't thought of giving, to think of giving now to an organization they trust. And, if you have given and you can afford to still give, then give, because, as Dr. Renu said, every little bit counts and will make a difference to somebody. Also, at the same time, we started, you asked me, Samita, about India and its corporate social responsibility. Indian organizations and companies in India are very, they're committed to the vulnerable within society, and they are doing a fantastic work to uplift people in remote areas. So that work will still continue. So, India is not completely adrift. It's not the Titanic just sailing off and it's going to somehow slide off, but we can help in other ways. Also, what's interesting is, before the pandemic, Prime Minister Modi had a commitment, and I'm sure he's still got this commitment, is that by 2025 he wants to make India a $5 trillion economy. However, what's been not taken into account, and how India can sort of achieve that, is women. And there's a McKinsey report that says women only make up 25% of the workforce, but just 10% of women in the workforce would allow India to increase its economy by 770 billion. That's what women can contribute if they were brought in. So I say, power to women. They are the ones that are going to uplift, Mother India. And yeah, that's what I do think. Women are we're tenacious. We women don't give up. They they keep going forward, and I'm sure women in India will be thinking of ways to uplift their families.
Yes, absolutely. And I think women across the world and even in India have shown resilience to hardships and to all these, the kind of conditions that they are exposed to. And we've seen that, like Dr. Renu was talking about, domestic violence. We've had several discussions on that, and women will come out of that, and they will come out strong. They, emerge once the pandemic ends, and they have the right support. They'll be back, and so I think that's a great. Those are very great insights for you to share with us. Thank you for sharing the McKinsey report as well with us. Dr. Reno, do you want to tell us a little more about, if you have any concluding words before we end the show? Do you want to share that with us?
Yes, I think when it comes to resilience, women are quite resilient, because if you think, we have to go through so many things, childbirth, bringing up a family, balancing work, life and family life. And we've also good leaders. We've got Mother Teresa, who's served all her life. We've got the Germany Chancellor. We've got the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So if you think, and they have done very well in the pandemic, if you look at it. So I think we as women, we should feel we should empower each other. We're not in a competition. We are inspiration for each other, and I think we can make a difference. And
Right.
I'm not in any way saying that men shouldn't be. I think men are doing well, and we should let them carry on doing well. But that does not mean that we shouldn't do well. We should support each other.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Sangeeta, anything else? Any concluding thoughts, concluding words?
I mean, I second what Dr. Renu has just said. That women are resilient, and we have seen in certain countries where there are very few female leaders anyway, but where we have seen women lead countries, they've been decisive, they've made the right decisions at the right time. But at the same time, what this pandemic has shown us is that how connected we all are. How fragile we all are. And we need everyone to make this work. So it's not just women, it's everyone. We're in this together. And while we might say, India is, across the world, and that's going on, what's happening in India affects us here in the UK. What's happening in Vietnam and other countries, it affects us. So until the world is connected and fighting this as a global war, then we are still going to be dealing with this pandemic. We can't be thinking in silos.
Absolutely. These are very, 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 very important, very, very pertinent points. Thank you so much, Dr. Renu. Thank you so much, Sangeeta Waldron. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy lives to come on the show. And we really appreciate your advice. We really appreciate your insights. Thank you so much. So it's time for us to wrap the show, and we'll see you next month, first Saturday. So stay tuned. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This world is full of little confusions. Get what you bargained for with Confused.com rewards.
Join the AA, the UK's #1. Our patrols will usually get you back off the road in around 30 minutes of getting to you. Plus, with unlimited call-outs, we'll always be there when you need us. Get that feeling from £6 a month. Join today. Call 0800 91 95 95 or visit theaa.com.
Ngajar wachal hulashe wasira jar achal hay
When Fatima arrived at hospital, she was too weak to even stand. But with urgent treatment and nutritious food, this is Fatima just days later. That's how fast a child can recover from severe malnutrition if they receive the food and medicine they need in time. That's what your £2 today could do. This is the land where Fatima's family now live since drought forced them to leave their home. But with your help, this is how families all over the world are transforming their land and their lives. With different types of seeds and new farming practices, this is what your £2 today could do. Please will you call 0800 055 7239 today to give just £2 a month. At Save the Children, we see how each donation adds up to something amazing. Children, happy and healthy because their parents can grow the food they need to thrive. That is what someone's £2 helped achieve. Imagine what yours could do. Please call 0800 055 7239 or visit our website.
For the perfect card this Father's Day, think thoughtful.com. From DIY dads to dads that can't dance. Dads who think they're super funny and dads who are simply super. Grumpy dads, funky dads, even slightly Trumpy dads. We've got thousands of cards for all sorts of dads, all thoughtfully created by independent designers. Meaning every card you buy from our marketplace helps to support a small business too. So for the perfect card, think thoughtful.com.
Key is here to answer all your questions on equity release. Where, for instance, can you get some advice you can trust? Key's expert advisors will always give you honest advice that's personal to you. And if equity release is not right for you, they'll tell you. All Key's advice is completely free of charge, so use our free calculator to see how much you could release. Key, equity release that's right for you.
Okay, I'm awake. Let's do this, Smudge.
Are you ready to party?
Keep on, keep on, keep on. You'll never stop this.
Give me everything you got, Tim.
Here for it, Ben.
Stay in it with me, come on.
Yeah, with you.
5, 4.
Last push, you've got this. Yes to you, Peloton. You're done and dusted, just like that.
Every day in our July draws, your summer could start with a £30,000 win.
Unbelievable.
And in one lucky postcode area, every player will win a share of £3.1 million.
You play with more than one ticket, don't you?
Oh, I've got 3.
Join before midnight on the 24th of June for a summer of celebrations.
It's always other people that win it, never you.
Oh my God! You're joking.
People like us do win.
Someone's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing the bell.
Let's take our feet down Beagle Street. Oh, the people that we'll meet. We'll pop up here and drop in on Roy, settling in with his new baby boy. Life insurance, he thought, whilst given a fright, and a £100 voucher he received with delight. But these late nights must have him feeling less wise, as he spent it on a toy and not checked the size. So to get your life covered for come what may, visit beaglestreet.com and get your quote today.
Rise, recline, relax with Oak Tree Mobility.
So I'm able to see
exchange of views on the way forward on global recovery from the pandemic with a focus on health and climate change. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman chairs the 44th GST Council meet via video conferencing in New Delhi. The meeting is being attended by Minister of State Anurag Thakur besides finance ministers and senior officers of states and union territories. The meeting is expected to take a decision regarding relief on COVID-19 related items based on Group of Ministers report. India's COVID vaccination drive is on at a steady pace and cumulative vaccine coverage has exceeded 24.96 crores, including more than 34 lakh vaccine doses administered in the last 24 hours. Over 3.85 crore beneficiaries of age group 18 to 44 have been vaccinated so far. More than 1 crore doses still available with states and union territories. India records over 84,300 new cases in the last 24 hours, lowest in 70 days. Recoveries continue to outnumber daily new cases for the 30th consecutive day. Active caseload declines to less than 11 lakh after 63 days, while recovery rate climbs to 95.07%. The centre debunks media reports alleging lack of requisite COVID facilities, including PPEs, in far-flung areas as untenable. Says India is the second largest manufacturer of PPE kits in the world. PPE kits were made available to states in excess of their demands. The BJP attacks the Congress over Digvijay Singh's clubhouse chat remark, terms it as shameful, says the Congress leaders speak Pakistan's language of reinstating Article 370. This is all part of Congress's toolkit campaign. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to embark on a 3-day visit to the Republic of Kenya starting today. He will co-chair the 3rd India-Kenya Joint Commission meeting, which will review all aspects of the bilateral relationship. The minister will also interact with the Indian origin community. And in an epic showdown, Novak Djokovic defeats 13-time champion Rafael Nadal at the French Open to reach his 6th Roland Garros final. Djokovic to face Stefanos Tsitsipas in the final on Sunday. In the women's singles category, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova of Russia to take on Barbora Krejcikova of the Czech Republic in the finals today. Namaskar, you're with the latest here on DD India and DD News. I'm Gautam Roy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the outreach sessions of the G7 summit in a virtual format today. United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson invited Prime Minister Modi for the summit, which began in Cornwall on Friday. The UK currently holds the presidency of the G7 and had invited India along with Australia, South Korea and South Africa as guest countries of the G7 summit. The meeting is being held in hybrid mode. The leaders are expected to exchange views on the way forward on global recovery from the pandemic with a focus on health and climate change. India will seek to highlight some of its regional and global priorities in the summit. On the vaccine front, New Delhi is set to push for European Union support for a waiver of patent protections for COVID-19 vaccines. India opposes the proposed vaccine passport system as it would discriminate against the developing world, where only a small fraction of the population has been inoculated against COVID-19. And to tackle China's economic ambitions in the region, India's efficient trade integration with the US, UK and the EU is vital, particularly taking global supply chains into account. Now, this is the second time Prime Minister Modi will be participating in a G7 meeting. India had been invited by the G7 French presidency in 2019 to the Biarritz summit as a goodwill partner, and Prime Minister Modi had participated in the sessions on climate, biodiversity and oceans, as well as digital transformation. Okay, now let's get you an update from Jammu and Kashmir. 2 police personnel have been martyred when terrorists opened fire targeting security forces in Sopore area. 2 civilians also lost their lives in the crossfire. The encounter broke out around noon when terrorists fired upon a joint team of the Central Reserve Police Force and police personnel at Naka in Arampura area. Security forces have meanwhile cordoned off the area. Further details are awaited. Let me now take you across for more details to Salman Qazi, my colleague, who's joining us on the phone line. Salman, what more can you tell us about this encounter? How are the security forces trying to get to the perpetrators of this cowardly and heinous act, where 2 security personnel have been martyred and 2 civilians have also been killed?
In a very busy locality of Arampura in the Sopur town in North Kashmir, and according to the reports, militants attacked a joint Naka party of CRPF and Jammu Kashmir police, in which 2 policemen have been killed and 2 civilians who have also been who had been injured have been also killed now, have been declared dead. Security forces have cordoned off the area, and since the area is quite dense and it's a market, a very busy market, as well as a very densely very dense populated area. The search operation is not going to be easy because militants have attacked and then dispersed among the in the area. The security forces are carrying out search operations and to nab the perpetrators of the attack and to find them. Right now, the latest report that we have, 2 cops had been injured and 2 civilians had been injured. All of them have been declared dead, and there are reports of few more injuries, but according to our sources, they are not very serious.
All right. Now, Salman, are the security forces saying what could have prompted this sort of an attack in the middle of, like you said, a market, and that too around noon, when I'm not sure if people were out and about in terms of how the situation related to the pandemic is prevailing in J&K, but still, what more can you tell us about this?
I mean, these attacks are expected as such. They're not kind of unexpected attacks. The militants have been trying to attack security forces since so many years, and they have tried to attack. Most of those attacks have been thwarted, but sometimes when they do get successful, it's very important to know that it could be very dangerous. Whenever they're successful, it has costs in terms of personnel and the general law and order for Jammu Kashmir. So definitely, it's not something that was unanticipated or something, not at that place, but militants have been trying to attack security forces all throughout Jammu and Kashmir, and usually they have been thwarted, but this time they have been successful, and it has extracted its cost in terms of 2 security personnel who have been killed and 2 civilians who have been killed, and according to reports, 3 more who have been injured.
Okay, Salman, I hope that these perpetrators, these terrorists are brought to book soon. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Now, the 44th meeting of the Goods and Services Tax Council was held in New Delhi today. The meeting, chaired by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, was expected to take a decision on relief in respect of COVID-19 related individual items based on the report of the group of ministers. The meeting was attended by Minister of State for Finance Anurag Thakur, besides finance ministers, and seeking exemption from IGST on a number of specified COVID-19 related goods such as medical oxygen, oxygen concentrators and other oxygen storage and transportation equipment, certain diagnostic markers, test kits and COVID-19 vaccines. The exemption is valid up to the 31st of August this year. Now, the countrywide COVID-19 vaccination drive is on a steady path. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has nearly reached the 25 crore mark today under the nationwide vaccination drive. 34,33,763 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. A total of 24,96,304 vaccine doses have been administered across the country so far. Now, with substantially ramped up testing capacity across the country, a total of 19,20,000 20,477 tests were conducted in the last 24 hours in the country. Cumulatively, India has conducted over 37.62 crore tests so far. While on one side testing has been enhanced across the country, a continued decline in weekly case positivity is noticed. Weekly positivity rate is currently at 4.94%, while the daily positivity rate stands at 4.39% today. It has remained less than 10% for 19 consecutive days now. And India has reported 84,332 daily new cases in the last 24 hours. The country has recorded less than 1 lakh daily new cases for the 5th consecutive day now. Now, this is a result of sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and the states as well as union territories. India has been witnessing a continuous fall in the active case load. The country's active case load today stands at 10,80,690. The case load is maintained below 20 lakhs for 12 successive days. A net decline of 40,981 has been witnessed in the last 24 hours, and active cases are now only 3.68% of the country's total positive cases. As more people are recovering from the infection,